This is the Spurscast with your host, Paul Garcia.
And welcome back to another episode of the Spurscast. On today's episode, I will be speaking with Project Spurs new owner Jacob DeLeon. Jacob is the nephew of former Project Spurs owner Michael DeLeon, who you all know. If you listen to the Spurscast for multiple years, unfortunately Mike passed away, but I think it's been about a year now since he passed away. And so Jacob is Project Spurs' owner, and he's actually be joining us here on for today's episode. In this episode, Jacob and I will discuss the Spurs in their last three games, some roster updates, and Devonte Graham's shooting since joining the team. Let's go and jump right into this episode with Jacob. Jacob, how you doing?
Doing good, man. It's pretty cool. I've always done like MMA podcasts and stuff, and I've never been on this one, but dude, I grew up seeing my uncle, we're gonna go do the Spurscast. You know what I mean? So like whether I was like seeing it, dude, I've seen it. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool. First time.
Yeah, man, welcome. You know, like I said, like this has definitely been something that your uncle started, and we've kept it going with Project Spurs, and so I'm really honored to keep it going in your uncle's memory. All right, unfortunately, Jacob, there's some the Spurs. This is not a good time. This is a very very difficult season for them. They're going through a rebuilding kind of year. So let's talk about how they've been doing the last three games since I last recorded an episode about a week ago with Joe Garcia. They've gone 1-2 since the last Spurscast episode. And in their last three games, so let's go back to a while back. You and I are recording this on a what is this, like a Wednesday? Is it today? No, Thursday. Okay, so it's a Thursday evening. Yeah, so let's go back a week ago. On last Thursday, the Spurs were at home hosting the Indiana Pacers. They actually won this game. They won by 11. It was close until late in the third quarter. San Antonio kind of took over, and their top three players in this game were Devonte Graham, Zach Collins, and Jeremy Sohan. Then on Saturday, the Spurs, the Houston Rockets, after winning two games in a row, the Spurs, they lose by 12 in this one. It was close again throughout, but then in the fourth quarter, Houston kind of took over and kind of expanded their lead. Again, top three players for San Antonio here were Devonte Graham, Charles Bassey, and Zach Collins. Then on Sunday, the Spurs' most recent game, they were on the road at Houston, so the second night of back-to-back, and they just got blown out in this one. They lost by 32 points. The Rockets really blew the game open 3 minutes into the third quarter, and their top three players, San Antonio, were Malachi Branham, Devonte Graham, and Keita Bates-Diop. Now, again, if we notice there, the player I kept mentioning a lot there, the one consistent player was Devonte Graham. We're going to talk about him later on in this episode. I really want to highlight how he's kind of been playing for the Spurs. But, Jacob, the Spurs, according to Vegas, they were supposed to go 0-3 these last three games, and they ended up going 1-2, so they kind of surpassed expectations. What have been your thoughts on the Spurs these last three games?
Dude, real quick, as you say that, talking about the odds, man, because I've been writing the previews and stuff, and I try to go over the odds and try to put, you know what I mean? And the Spurs, they're, dude, in the past literally month and a half, it's been, dude, at minimum 3-1. Like, if it's under that, it's good odds. You know what I mean? But, dude, if you take it back like 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, the odds weren't that bad. Like, the Spurs would be like minus or plus 140, plus 130. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But now they're coming into games at plus 400, plus 500. Against the Rockets, they didn't. But, man, with all the injuries and stuff, dude, it's been getting rough this later half of the season. Even with the Jazz, man, the last time they played them was, I think, the end of December. It was, the odds were almost even. Going into this one when they played the Jazz, it was like a 4-1. You know what I mean? So they're definitely at with Vassell out and everything, dude, it's a weird time. I know definitely with you, the Spurs have never been on a 16-game losing streak. You know what I mean? As you've been doing the show, but dude, it's my first time on there, so I kind of want to ramble about a lot of the whole season.
Go ahead.
I mean?
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, it is rough, and like as we were saying earlier, Devonte Graham. You know what I mean? Is it good or bad that he's getting this much minutes, this much scoring, dude? If you're a young player in the NBA. Yes, it sucks losing, but dude, you could not ask for a better developmental. You're gonna get the minutes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it sucks that Vassell got hurt because he missed all that game time. But man, by the time it's his, you know what I mean? Once it comes later in the year, dude, they had years starting against NBA starters. You know what I mean? This is the best. I mean, it's weird seeing it, but dude, I think it's gonna. You know what I mean? These players are going to be good, whether they're still with the Spurs in a few years or not. Like these young guys, they're going to get good.
Yeah, and that's something Coach Pop's talked about, how this is a year for them to just kind of grow and develop. It may not be with San Antonio. It could be later on in their careers. He just wants to make sure that they have a good year for them, the players. And as we've seen, it's been good to see Vassell get back. And like we've seen with the team, they're going to manage his minutes very, very carefully. They don't want him to get hurt again. So we may not see him play in like multiple consecutive games. He may always get that second night off just because there's not that many games left. So let's kind of go through that, though, just kind of how the team's doing now that 65 games are now in the book. So offensively, they have slipped a little bit now. They're now 29th on offense. Defensively, still dead last in the league, 30th. Net rating still 30th. Overall record, 16-49. Again, Houston just continues to be the worst team in the West, so they can never pass Houston. I didn't notice this until I looked at the standings just today when I was prepping the notes. They are officially eliminated from the playoffs. When you look at the little standings icon on the screen, it says E next to San Antonio and Houston. So both the Spurs and Rockets are officially eliminated from making the playoffs, which of course we didn't think they were going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, man, I thought that number would have been set weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I hadn't been there since the last Spurs game, at least when I checked. So it's officially there. They can no longer make the playoffs, not make the play-in game at all. There are 17 games left in the season. They continue to have the third worst record in the league, 14%, which means 14% overall pick odds, which is even with even with first and but the worst case scenario is the part of that where they can fall to seventh as the worst case scenario on draft night if they finish with the third worst record. Last time with Joe, it took me about one try to get the Spurs the number one pick using Tankathon's draft simulator. Today, it took me 9 chances. So again, that's just giving you a preview of like there's no guarantee, even if they have this bad record, that they're going to get the number one pick when the draft comes here next month in April. What are your thoughts, just Jacob? Like you kind of wanted to say there just about the team, how they've been overall.
Yeah, man, it's dude. Well, this last 2 games with Houston, like you said, you know what I mean. They're battling for the bottom, and as with the draft, it's almost like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Who's the bottom? It's not going to give you the number one pick. So like there's nothing. They're not losing on purpose. You know what I mean? They're just they're a young team. You know what I mean? When Trey Jones is out, they're a lot worse on the offensive end. Like it's a bush. You know what I mean? You can't point to one thing on the Spurs, and it's that. It's like it's so much things. You know what I mean? They're just a young squad, and it's just they're in the same boat as the Rockets and the Thunder. You know what I mean? It's just they're young, and it's not gonna happen overnight. But I like what they're building, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I know they definitely have some foundational pieces there, like you said, like Vassell, Keldon Johnson. They got Malachi Branham now, Sohan, a lot of Blake Wesley. Those are like foundational pieces for the team. So now, Jacob, there was some roster updates that it's very surprising to see these kind of roster moves happening in March. Like I'm just not used to that for the Spurs, but they actually had some movement on their team. So what's happening is on Friday, March 3rd, they did waive Isaiah Roby, who had been injured, and also he hadn't really found a place in the rotation. He got minutes here and there at times, but he was never actually part of like the consistent rotation. And so what the team did was on Friday, they claimed Sandro Mamukelashvili off waivers and converted his 2-way contract into a full NBA deal. So that meant that they didn't have to waive Julian Champagnie and Dominic Barlow, who are already on the 2-way contracts for San Antonio. And so they used that open roster spot from Roby being waived to add Mamu. I'm just going to call him Mamu. It's easier to say his name that way. Anyway, so what his contract looks like is he's earning $357,000 for the remainder of the season. Just because there's about 17 games left. And then in this offseason, he will be an unrestricted free agent. So again, that's kind of some roster movement that they made, the Spurs. We have seen Sandro get some minutes here early on. He's already played in 2 games since joining the team, and he's gotten 17 total minutes. And really what we've seen, just because it's a small sample size, we've seen that he can be a spacing kind of big. He likes to shoot the 3-ball. He likes to space the floor for the team. As far as where the roster stands overall, they still have a full roster with 15 NBA players, 2 players on 2-way contracts. They have $22.1 million in cap space this season up until June 30th. And right now they're about $9.7 million below the salary floor. So again, it's maybe they'll waive some players and still sign some players. I don't think they will, but they can still make those kind of moves. But at the end of the year, if they don't fill that $9.7 million dollars, then the players remaining on the team, they're going to get that money divided amongst themselves. So they're going to get a nice check there at the end of the year, especially if we're having to go through a rebuilding tough season with all these losses this year. It's kind of a nice reward if that ends up happening. What are your thoughts on the team making these roster moves this past week?
Man, honestly, I'm not too familiar with that player or anything like that, but I mean, I can speak to our 2-way contracts. You know what I mean? The Blake Wesley, the Charles Bassey, and then the Dominic Barlow. I mean, I made my way up there to Austin at least 3 or 4 times a season. Okay. And this is when they all played on Austin, and dude, they were Barlow, man, he jumps out the gym. Super athletic guy. I mean, the problem with him is I think he's like 6'9", right? He's he doesn't have that big body, and that's where Austin, you could tell once Bassie got moved up. I mean, they were just down low. It's tough when you're big at 6'9". You know what I mean? He's the biggest guy that you have. But man, those are two-way players. They were doing really good in the G League, man. And even Blake Wesley, like I'm glad to see him getting minutes now. You know what I mean? Because he's doing good, man. And I like to see it was cool because I never really kept with the G League and stuff. And then I'm you know what I mean, going over all the articles, and I'm like, you know what I mean, let's go make some games. And it's cool to see the roster changes and how they go back and forth from San Antonio to Austin, and then you know what I mean, how of course Bassie's finishing the season. So it's cool to see, man. I like to see there's no winning going on, so it's cool to see the minutes get spread and see, you know what I mean, everybody kind of get their shine.
For sure, and especially in the fact that like the Spurs aren't following the normal Spurs route of like you're a rookie, you get sent to Austin for most of the year, and that's it. Like right now, because of our rebuilding team, I mean, we got to see Jeremy Sohan from day one be a starter at the NBA level. We got to see Malachi Branham. He's getting a lot of minutes. I looked at his numbers. He's getting over 30 minutes now since the All-Star break. I mean, he's just with all those injuries to the players, he's kind of getting his shot. And even Blake Wesley is now getting 15 minutes as a rookie is a lot for a Spurs player.
And they're trying people out too, because like
exactly.
I mean, Alize, he ended up getting cut, going somewhere else. But I mean, they didn't give him over 15, 20 minutes. But you know, they're bringing him up. They're giving him 10 minutes. Like they're kind of trying to bring him up, and you know what I mean. They're making an effort to kind of see where everybody's at. But
yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree there. They're just, it's definitely been more opportunity for everyone. And now one of the players I really want to talk about who we really haven't discussed yet on the Spurscast is one of the new players they acquired via the trade deadline. That's Devonte Graham. You know, he's more of a veteran player for the team. And so now that he's played 10 games, I have noticed some things. And again, it's a positive, but also in a way for the young players' development, I think it can be kind of like a negative, just the way that the fact that he's getting a lot of minutes and things like that. So let's kind of talk about how Graham has been playing with the Spurs. And these are numbers just since he got traded to San Antonio. So he's averaging 15.4 points as a Spur on 12 shots. He's the third leading scorer. He's averaging 4.3 assists, which is second on the team, only behind Trey Jones. He's grabbing 2.6 rebounds, don't really stick out too much. 1.6 fouls, don't stick out too much. 1 turnover in 28 minutes per game. So he's getting those minutes. He's getting 28 minutes a night since joining the team. You can tell Coach Pop just knows this guy's a veteran. He's someone that he can depend on, so he's putting him out on the floor each night. As far as I was interested in seeing, this is a very low volume 3-point shooting team. And so I wanted to see what do the numbers look like before getting Graham and what do they look like after. And so we definitely see an uptick. Before adding Devonte Graham, they were averaging 30.7 3-point attempts per game, which is 27th, again, bottom three. And then since they added him, they're now 18th. They're averaging 32.6, about 3 more 3-point attempts per game with Graham. And we definitely see that he's a player who takes a lot of threes. Before we get to the big questions here about him, I kind of want to go through his shot profile because obviously, it matches the eye test where you just know this is a guy that takes a lot of threes. Out of his 116 shots, 74% of them have been from the 3-point line. One thing I really noticed that he does that other Spurs players don't do is he likes to take those pull-up threes, those off-the-dribble threes. 55% of his attempts are pull-up threes, and he's actually been efficient. He's averaging 1.02 points per shot. They don't leave him open much, but when they do leave him open, he makes the defense pay. And as we've seen, since he's a smaller guard, he doesn't really get into the paint a lot. He barely takes the shots in there, 60%. And he doesn't really waste his time on the mid-range shot. So I guess my first big question for you, Jacob, is do you think having a veteran player like Graham can maybe influence the Spurs' young players who are going to be here long-term, like Vassell or Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, to maybe start taking some of the threes that he does? Like I said, he takes 55% of his shots on pull-up threes, and just like the second Spur in the rotation behind him who takes that many, like close to that many, is Vassell at just 27%. So do you think he can have like an effect as far as like an impact on the older guy, on the younger players?
Yeah, and it's a weird boat, man, because like it's like, is he a role player or is he like taking over more than that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So and that's what you're saying earlier. Like it's kind of weird ground. Like he's not the number one scorer, but he's been top 3 every game. I mean, the first game he came over, I don't remember what he scored, but I think he dropped over 30, right?
Yeah.
And looking at his numbers there, I mean, the guy's a 3-point shooter. You know what I mean? Look how much threes he attempted. And in the paint, what is it? 19 shots, 10-point mid-range. It's by far the dude's going to shoot a 3-point shot. And I mean, yeah, as it comes to the other players on the Spurs roster, I'm not too sure, man, like as far as development, but I mean, I can say like we needed somebody with Josh Richardson leaving. You know what I mean? We needed somebody who could fill that basket. But man, as far as for the other players, I'm not too sure about that, man. But the Spurs definitely needed somebody who can shoot. You know what I mean? And that's why it's a weird question, man. Because even Keldon Johnson, he's probably not the number one option on another team. He's the number one option for the Spurs. You know what I mean? And I think that guy as a number two option, he's you know what I mean? Super reliable. When he's the number one, I'm not too sure, but it's just it's a weird ground, man, with Devonte Graham, because it's like they don't have that player they can go through. So these aren't the normal roles almost of a normal basketball team. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
For sure. No, I totally understand. Yeah, and my answer on that question about, does he influence the younger players in taking more threes? I almost feel like I want to see what it looks like in the offseason. Like, do they like Devin Vassell and Keldon and Malachi? Are they like going to work out with him this offseason and kind of pick his brain and see, hey, what can they pick up some of those off dribble threes from him? I don't know if that's going to happen, but again, I think that's more so a question for the offseason. And then the other question is kind of going back to what we were saying about, he's kind of, even though he's playing well, he is taking some minutes from the younger players, and where's that balance there? So I think in terms of that question, that goes more so for Blake Wesley. So my question is, should they limit Devonte's minutes to give Blake Wesley more opportunity? So what I noticed is that for the season, Wesley's averaging about 15 minutes a night with San Antonio. Since the trade deadline, since basically Devonte joined the team, he's only averaging 18 minutes a night. So again, it's just a 3-minute bump. It's not really a significant. Whereas Malachi Branham, we see a huge increase. He went from 22 minutes for the season to now 30 minutes post trade deadline. So we see Branham's definitely getting his minutes. Now we know Trey Jones has been out. There's been more opportunity, but I wonder, should the coaching staff maybe limit Trey Jones and Graham's minutes, or at least one of those players, so that Blake Wesley gets his opportunity with these last 17 games? What are your thoughts there?
That's a good question, man. Because I'd like to see Blake Wesley get those minutes. But I mean, as long as he hits that 18, I don't think 18 minutes is bad right now. That's a lot of experience for, a G League player coming off. And I mean, Branham, he earned every single 30 minutes now he's getting. You know what I mean? That February, I don't know what he was averaging, but I mean, the beginning of the season, it was Keldon and Vassell leading the charge. You know what I mean? Then it was pretty much like that the whole first half. And then now it's like, if you look a month ago, it's Branham that's leading the charge and Keldon's kind of wishy-washy here in the lineup. You know what I mean? And he's been the man. He's a scoring option. So it's going back to the Blake Wesley. I think he is getting the 18 minutes. I think that's fair in my eyes. I think he's getting his experience, and I mean, Devonte Graham, if he can keep putting up numbers, and you know what I mean, we almost went on a 3-game winning streak right there soon, but and if we do, I would definitely think Devonte Graham, he's helping out with that, spreading the minutes and spreading the ball around.
Yeah, and I will say too, because that becomes worrisome for the fans that want the team to tank, is like, if Devonte starts having these games where he's making 5-7 3-pointers, in each game, you don't want them to win too many games. But then again, they're not winning. They're like 2-8 since he joined the team. So good. It's not like him playing well is going to really help the team too much. And I just go ahead.
Well, real quick too, like a lot of it, man. Maybe it is good with the younger guys because like. I mean, thinking of any other sport, dude, anything of just executing in a game, it's mental. You know what I mean? So maybe getting and seeing pop, like them saying, oh, hey, this guy's shot, 10 3-pointers and popped in, you know what I mean? Like, and just his ability to be confident enough to, maybe that will help their confidence. Like, hey, we got nothing, you know what I mean? Just throw it up. You know what I mean? See where you're at. So I don't know, man. Maybe it can be.
Yeah, and then just the last thing I do want to say is that, like, yes, they're giving him more opportunity. He's actually being productive with those minutes at Devonte Graham. So when we look at his contract, he's making about $11.5 million this year. Next year he's on the books for $12.1 million, and then in the following year he's partially guaranteed $3 million out of $12.7 million in 24-25. And per Profit X .ai, one of their software models they have, is kind of shows if a player's outperforming his contract, and Devonte he's playing like a player earning like $12.3 million, I believe, when I last checked their numbers, for considering he's making 11.5. So I think that by him shining in San Antonio for at least next season or even this summer, he's going to at least keep his trade value pretty high if the Spurs want to try to move him later on to a playoff team or something like that in this offseason or even next year. So I think that it doesn't make sense not to not play him, basically. Like he's being a productive player. He's not just wasting opportunity out there. He's giving you a chance to win. And like I said, I'm eager to see if maybe the young guys do learn something from him.
Mm-hmm. Hey, real quick, I'm curious. What do you think about next year? Because you said we had 40-something million in cap for
Yeah, when I last checked the numbers, it was like 40 plus minutes. Here, I'll pull it up real quick just to check real fast. So Spurs, let me see here real quick. Yeah, just because I want to have the exact number. It used to be like 60 plus million, but then they when they made the Devonte Graham trade and a few others, they impacted that a little bit. But I mean, like I've talked about before, there's really no reason to have all that cap space if you're a rebuilding team. So okay, I have right here 45.3 million. Which can get you which can be able to offer, you can offer a max free agent that money as long as that player doesn't have more than like 10 years of service in the league.
And I don't see us going that route. I don't see, you know what I mean? We're not going to offer the max. I think it's going to depend on the draft for one, right? And that's going to
for sure
kind of give us a big direction to see where we're going to go. But yeah, I don't think, can you see us in a year getting a max player like that?
I don't know. San Antonio is a tough draw right now for just because they're like a rebuilding situation. They're one of those small market teams. Yada yada. If they get Wembanyama, then maybe a veteran player.
Right? That would be able
that's
to
exactly it, like you said earlier. It just depends on who they draft. If they get Wembanyama or even maybe Scoot Henderson and Scoot really shines. I feel like for a free agent, I feel like if they see the Spurs have Wembanyama, then maybe like that's way more appealing. Whereas if they see Scoot, I think they kind of want to wait and see what Scoot turns into. Now, if they get from pick 3 on, I mean, I think that's just another rebuilding year like we have this year. I don't see any of those players, being like an impact player immediately, like a Wembanyama is expected to be. So, I mean, but that's a tough thing, man, is that like, there's no guarantee they get Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson. Like that's,
I mean, and that's basketball at the trade deadline in general, right? Like who thought Devonte Graham would be playing for the Spurs?
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. Yeah, that's just kind of where it's at. And definitely we're going to get into that, all the off-season stuff once the season ends. And I am interested to see, because I need to do some research where I think that once the Spurs' season's officially over after 17 games, there's like that time from like April to June 30th when they can still make some roster moves. Because I've seen teams make trades before the basically like the financial year resets, which is June 30th, going into free agency. So I am eager to see if that happens. Maybe they try to use some of that cap space still for this season. But again, I'm not too sure if that would happen. So thank you to Jacob for joining me here on this episode of the Spurscast. I also want to say thank you to Joe Garcia for also mixing and producing this episode. From all of us at Project Spurs, stay safe and have a great day.